Beautiful souls with Termador here from Soul Healing Tribe. And I want to continue with the video series, very short video series on the astral planes and our astral body. If you've seen the movie Doctor Strange, you will see that when the Elder Master pushes Strange, and that is a huge clue for those that don't know, that when we're working with our astral body, normally that part is going to reside in the heart area. So when we start working on, we talked in the first video, the need to work with healing so that we can open properly the heart chakra, so that we can have a proper kundalini, so that we can have proper third eye awakening. Because when your third eye is open and clearly seen, the illusions fall away. You are able to tap into beyond. You can see beyond the veil. And you are not easily tricked. You're not easily deceived by energies, things, or people. So when I said a filter, I'm talking about the way that we filter that information through our perception based on the experiences from this reality. And my awakening process, in order for me to really understand what is really that is coming through, because sometimes we don't understand and we misinterpret. Just like when we're making assumptions, somebody says X, Y, and Z, and you hear A, B, C. They say one thing, you hear something else, because we're not on the same frequency, right? So my frequency of the little me is different than my frequency of the middle of me, my astral body, and the higher me, that is my higher self, my sacred self. So when we are filtering the information that comes from our sacred higher self, our inner wisdom that is being filtered through the filter of consciousness, the third eye, the throat, the heart, and then we're like, what the heck is going on? And we don't understand. We only understand this much. Our brain is processing. The left brain is in the way, trying to make sense of things, and it's all like a ping pong. Like we receive a thought, we receive a perception of a thought, we go into trying to decipher that thought, and sometimes we push the thought because it causes us suffering. Pushing away the suffering is a big problem, because when we push away the suffering, we create more suffering. And that was his way of saying that we need to heal, and that we need to open our heart, and that we need to work with compassion for ourselves and others, and so on. I honestly wish I remember where I read or heard that, because it's coming up here now for a reason. So, and it brings me back to what I spoke about in the first video: compassion, empathy, in order for us to work with our heart, to open our heart so that we can experience a reality beyond this ordinary reality, whether it is in dreams, meditations, and so on, or trances, or even psychedelics. To go deeper within those experiences, we really need to work on healing. Accepting the suffering doesn't mean that we're going to keep reliving the suffering. It means I'm going to become aware and acknowledge that I endure certain experiences, and that now I can accept and let them be, let them go. I don't have to hold on tight. I don't have to push them away, because when I do that, I continue to recreate it unconsciously. It just keeps coming over and over. And that's when the intrusive thoughts appear, because we're pushing something that our subconscious is letting us know we need to work through it. So when we start working through the suffering that we endure, whether it is in this life or any other, we start to become aware, accept, and we can then let it be. I think that was what he was trying to say when he said that we need to welcome our suffering. I think that was the word that he used. And to me, the way I see that is, we need to become aware, because sometimes we're not even aware of the suffering that we endure, because maybe it wasn't something big, but we don't realize that even when something is small, it can cause us to become and operate from a false reality of who we are, which separates us even more from our true self, which creates more guilt, more anger, frustration, separation within us, because a part of us knows this is not the way it's supposed to be. And the other part believes that this is the only way. So we are divided, we are separated. And our true self feels a certain way. It can have that agony and despair for us. And maybe sometimes that's when we tap into the energy of Santa Muerte or one of those Anima Sola, because we are resonating with that frequency of the despair of the consciousness in ourself when we separate from self, from ourselves, from our family, from our friends, collective, and so on. And I believe, this is my perception, and I don't know if other people think the same way, because I haven't looked into this, and I'm not an astrologer, so I'm not in the astrology communities to know if this is true. But I believe that when we are creating that thought to be here in human form, and we're going through that process of transformation, and we are separating from our sacred self to come into this experience of being in a human form, we go through that tunnel. And when we're going through that tunnel and everything gets separated from self, from the sacred self, that we are then interacting with the different parts of the astrology already, where things are already happening within astrology, to give us the clue, just like what we find in Ifa with the Oduns and so on. So anyways, I see this idea of astrology as when we make that thought of what would it be like to experience life in this form and experience shame, separation, love, excitement, adventure, family, blah, 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 blah. We have another part of us that makes that into a reality. The feminine energy that makes the masculine energy into a reality. The left brain and the right brain. I'm not going to go into this because I provided this in the ancestral healing program, and I'm going to keep it like that because they pay a lot of money to be in that program. But what I'm going to say here is that when you go through that process, eventually you allow, this is something that is very important, allow a part of a darker aspect of us, almost like a divine twin, except that I'm not going to get into this 100%, but except that that divine twin sometimes it's just an illusion of what it means to be separate from the sacred self. And sometimes it is something beyond that. To me, it's more like the unconscious that doesn't realize that it's conscious. So it's trapping in the illusion of being separate, of being completely removed from source, completely removed from the true sacred self. So to me, I see it as the unconscious part that holds the key of where we need to look in order for us to find what part of us, in what house is that Lilith node, and what is it showing us about who we are? What is there hidden in the unconscious that if I work through it, I can become conscious? Now, there is another way to do this in regression work. We go through life between lives, and we can do a lot of this. But the thing is that when we do life between lives, a lot of people haven't done a lot of the healing work because they just want the quick answers. So no, I had noticed when I was doing quantum healing that when people will do quantum healing sessions, they wanted to know their purpose, but they have so much crap that they needed to work through that by the time they got to the point that they were asking those questions, they were doubting because the amount of traumas they experienced that haven't been worked through, preventing them from really receiving the message clearly. They will receive the message, but they will push it away because they didn't believe that the message was possible. I'll do a video on that next because I want to talk about quantum healing and how it can be very powerfully used. But the problem is if you don't heal first and you just go into a session to find your purpose, you are missing the point, in my opinion, which is why I love doing the trauma work, because then when we do the spiritual ceremonies or the sessions that are a blend of what I do with a little bit of the quantum healing and the magical stuff, then people understand really. It's not just hearing, because hearing is not the same as really paying attention and receiving it. Anyway, so I believe the Lilith Node shows us our unconscious, our hidden pieces of what we are struggling with that keep us feeling separated from our true sacred self. As that energy anchors in this body, to have this body, we have the lower aspect, this physical body. We have the middle aspect, which is the heart chakra, which is the one that neutralizes the body, the lower and the higher chakras. It basically balances the lower and the higher. So if the heart chakra is not balanced, you're not going to be able to have that kundalini. I don't like that word, but let's use it because that's what people know. That kundalini moment where everything becomes clear in that moment, and eventually your filter of consciousness continue to expand and expand and expand. But let's go down. What causes the chakra, the heart chakra, to be blocked is normally because as we are anchored in this body, we have a lot of experiences, even before being born. When we're separating from source, we have already tons of trauma and perceptions about how we see those traumas. So you are going through the separation, you anchor in the tiny little embryo, the fetus and all of that, and the little baby's growing. And that moment when that little egg, that little embryo is becoming something, a piece of it, the soul is already anchored there. But that tiny little piece that is anchored, sometimes pieces of that tiny part leaves the body because of the trauma that mom is going through, that makes the little tiny part of the self believe that it's not wanted, or believe that it's not safe out there, or believe that there is no money. How are we going to survive? So the little tiny piece of the soul is saying, oh, I don't belong here, they don't want me, and already starts fragmenting even from then. So the more it grows, more energy is supposed to be anchoring into the little body until age 7 up to 21 and so on. But every time there is trauma, part comes in and parts leave because there is trauma. So we're never 100% capacity. So what do we have to do when we grow is realize that we have issues that we need to work through so that we can receive all those pieces back, so we can have enough light within us, energy to sustain the amount of energy that is required in order for you to open up the third eye properly, in order for you to go and experience life the way, without the illusions, the true reality.